Hey Trevin, one of the things going on in the church is a lot of talk about culture, but I've heard other people say as Christians are starting to think more about culture, they're saying, why do we even need to reflect on culture? So if someone posed you that question, I guess I am now, why does culture matter for the church?
I think that's a great question. That a lot of people think that culture is somehow a distraction from the gospel, from the Great Commission, from just doing church, discipleship, whatever it is that we feel like we're called to do. That analyzing culture, studying culture, understanding culture is something of a distraction from the real task of just making disciples.
Yeah.
But if you think of culture as an environment, as something that influences our values and our feelings about things, the way we look at the world, then you realize that saying you shouldn't worry about culture is sort of like saying, I'm going to try to love my neighbor, but I don't really care about the neighborhood, right? The neighborhood, the environment in which a neighbor is, that matters. So at the end of the day, I think we analyze and we study culture and we seek to understand even the culture that we live in, that may have caused us to make certain assumptions or to see the world in a way that even we are unaware of. All of that matters because it's a way of understanding people. At the end of the day, we care about culture, not because we want to be smart and savvy and impress people with our intellectual abilities. We care about culture because we care about people. We know that people shape culture and culture shapes people, and so that is an important aspect of what it means for us to follow Jesus in this age.
Yeah, so what are some practical ways or practical ways we could see culture shaping people? Could you give us a few examples?
Well, I mean, a really easy example that probably will hit close to home is that it used to be that you had office hours, and yet with the advent of email and certain technologies and smartphones and the ability to be constantly connected, we now have created in a lot of work environments the kind of culture where it's perfectly normal to be answering emails and doing some work at 9:30 at night from your couch in the living room, just as it might be on a Saturday morning to be doing work or outside of your normal office hours, business hours. It's sort of, that is one way in which culture has changed the way that we interact, the way that we see our work, to the point that now there are some places in Europe and some other parts of the world where they're putting like an email moratorium for certain hours of the night, and because they realize that there's been something created in the culture of a work environment where they don't think it's healthy for people to be up at 1 a.m. emailing their boss or continuing to get work done. And so it's interesting how some of these practices can shape the way that we view our jobs, including the hours, the way that we, where work gets done, when work gets done, all of those things. That's just one example of how people, through our inventions, have shaped culture, and then the culture has now shaped people, and so now people are responding to see how they can modify that culture. There's just one example. We can multiply that out by a lot.
Yeah, and I think where the rubber hits the road for Christians is you're thinking about how does this affect discipleship, or how does it affect evangelism or apologetics, that we're not just dealing with kind of giant brains, but we're dealing with people who have loves and have desires and have imaginations, and then the culture is not only affecting how people think, but the culture is affecting what people love, what people desire.